One of the first things they tell you to do on an airplane is to fasten your seatbelt. But for one crew member, ignoring that instruction nearly ends in catastrophe.
At 7:30 a.m., a flight takes off from Birmingham, England to Malaga, Spain. There are about 81 people on board, and they're all tourists that are going to be making their way down to sunny Spain to sun themselves on the beaches.
Once the plane hits cruising altitude, the autopilot is engaged. So Captain Tim Lancaster sits back, loosens his seatbelt, and unbuckles his shoulder harness.
The flight's cruising along, everything's going just fine. At about 13 minutes into the flight, there's a massive explosion.
Suddenly, the cockpit door is ripped from its hinges.
There's no flames, there's no smoke, but there's a rushing wind.
Through the open cockpit doorway, passengers witness a terrifying scene.
The windshield in front of the captain's chair is completely gone. So the crew is being blasted with winds of 400 miles per hour. And craziest of all, the captain's chair is empty.
The captain has been sucked out of the window and is hanging on for dear life while 400-mile-an-hour winds are just blasting his body, so much so that his clothes are torn apart.
The only reason the captain is not sucked out of the window completely is because his feet are caught on the control panel. And this fast-thinking steward named Nigel Ogden grabs a hold of Captain Lancaster's legs.
He's now stuck and plastered to the aircraft. The temperature is nearly negative 30 degrees Celsius, and he is literally hanging on for dear life.
But there's an even bigger problem. When the captain's body hits the controls on the way out, he disengages the autopilot.
With the autopilot off, the aircraft now goes into a dive.
Fighting the blasting, freezing winds, co-pilot Alastair Aitchison is able to pull up and regain control of the plane.
However, with all the screaming and the pandemonium in the cockpit, nobody can hear any response from any of the towers. Aitchison has no clue where he's going to put this aircraft down.
Things are going from bad to worse. Ogden, who's holding on to the captain, his hand becomes frostbitten. He calls for help, and another steward enters the cockpit and grabs a hold of the captain.
During the transfer, the captain slips even further out of the window and now is being held onto only by his ankles.
Then there's a miracle. Aitchison hears directions, and he finds out that he can go back towards Southampton, which is about 70 miles south of London, and land the aircraft there.
With no windshield and Captain Lancaster dangling from the front of the plane, Aitchison is able to safely land, ending Lancaster's unbelievable 20-minute ride.
The blood spattered across the fuselage, showing the desperate position he was in. Captain Lancaster is being treated for 2 broken ankles, broken ribs, and frostbite.
He's alive. And after 5 months, Captain Lancaster goes back to piloting airplanes. You gotta give it to Captain Lancaster. He's a brave man.
Flailing thousands of feet in the sky is a frightening thought. But at least this captain had his crew to help him.
The same can't be said for one woman who goes on the most unexpected and terrifying ride of her life.
It's 2007, and a woman named Ewa Wisniewska, she's a Polish-born paraglider who competes with the German national team. It's right before the World Championships in Eastern Australia, and she and the team have gone there early to train in the very location that the competition is taking place later that year.
It's a clear day and the winds are favorable, so she decides to suit up and go for a test flight.
She's flying along. She's somewhere between 14 and 18,000 feet high. Then she sees some clouds, which is weird because the forecast didn't have any storms in it.
She sort of avoids the first one and sort of tries to thread the needle between 2 of them.
And then she sees another cloud heading straight for her.
Ava doesn't realize it, but this is what's known as a cumulonimbus cloud, and it's bad news.
Inside cumulonimbus clouds, we have incredibly high winds. There's lightning, there's hail. This is a bad thing to be inside, especially if you're a paraglider.
Ava is sucked in and sucked up at a rate of approximately 130 feet a second. She's now in this darkening, ice-cold vortex that keeps pushing her upward. She's surrounded by peals of lightning and roars of thunder. She's being pelted with hail, and Ava cannot stop rising.
Within minutes, Ava is at an incredible 32,000 feet, higher than the peak of Mount Everest.
At an altitude of 32,000 feet, there is not much oxygen. The atmosphere is very thin. The temperature drops. It's around minus 60 degrees. Ava can't breathe.
She has no warmth layer. She's getting beaten up, and then suddenly, she passes out.
So here she is being pelted by hail the size of oranges. She's likely freezing to death. She's unconscious and totally out of control. Her chances for survival look really slim to none.
But something remarkable pushes the odds in Ava's favor.
As she's being battered around, a change in the wind drops her to about 22,000 feet, providing more oxygen, so Ava actually wakes up.
Unfortunately, Ava has a new problem.
As quickly as she shot up into the atmosphere, she's now headed down to Earth like a comet. She falls about 10,000 feet, and then miraculously, out of nowhere, the chute opens again.
Freezing, weak, and barely conscious, Ava maneuvers her glider safely to the ground, 40 miles from her launch site.
She's incredibly bruised from being struck by massive balls of hail. She's got frostbite, but not only does she make a complete recovery, but just weeks later, she's back up in the paraglider again.
Ava's near-death journey remains the highest paraglider flight ever documented, and one of the most miraculous escapes from disaster in any sport. Guess that's one way to make it into the record books.
It's February of 2022, and you have the Felicity Ace cargo ship sailing from Germany to the United States. It's carrying around 4,000 luxury cars. We're talking everything from Lamborghinis to Porsches to Bentleys, and some of these cars are costing as much as $400,000 a pop.
So the Felicity Ace is in the vicinity of an island chain called the Azores when a massive fire breaks out. But this is no ordinary fire. This is a fire fueled by lithium-ion batteries, and the 22-man crew cannot control this fire.
Rescue teams do arrive by helicopter, and they do make sure that the crew is safe, but it takes crews ultimately around 2 weeks to put the blaze out.
The structural damage to the ship is so severe, it can't make the trip to New York on its own. However, there is still hope for quite a few of the cars. And their manufacturer says, listen, we don't need to lose all of our inventory. Let's try to salvage this so this is not a complete loss.
A rescue tugboat arrives from Portugal and attempts to tow the ship to safety.
As soon as they start to tow this boat, it begins to list to the right and to the left. And each time it does, it takes on more water. And as it takes on more water, it becomes harder and harder to move. And eventually, it rolls over on its side.
So all of these people, the ship's crew and the rescuers, the tugboat team, are watching, not being able to do anything as the full cargo vessel full of these expensive cars slowly sinks to the bottom of the ocean, 10,000 feet down into the sea.
The estimated total loss for these 4,000 cars is $330 million.